Deion Sanders, in an interview with Stephen A. Smith, said there is no way in the world Colorado would be left out of the college football playoff. He's implying with the same circumstances that Florida State had on Selection Sunday. Do we agree with that? How do we feel about this overall conversation around Colorado versus the playoff being undefeated? We'll talk about that. First things first, though, make sure you're subscribed. Talking college football every single day. Not just when the games stop. We're talking college football all year round. Again, every single day, live 3 times a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. This show, The Hard Count, is on the air. Full hour-long episodes. You can also find us on podcasts, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get them. We appreciate y'all rocking with us and being subscribed. So thank you for that. So I want to make sure that we talk about this before we dive into this conversation around what he said to Stephen A. Smith in that interview. There's a lot of talk around Deion Sanders going 4-8 this year, and people saying it's not going to work. Deion Sanders in those first 3 games was a fluke. He's a phony. Let me be very clear. Deion Sanders in his first year at Colorado was a smashing success. People say, well, JD, they went 1-8 after going 3-0. I hear that. What were they last year? Right, 1-11. So forget Deion Sanders. Take him out of the equation. You have a 3-game improvement from the year before. That's success in my mind. Talk about the way that they're relevant now in the college football landscape. Was College Game Day even thinking about going to Boulder, Colorado before Deion Sanders gets hired there? Have to imagine no. And they went for a game that wasn't exactly going to be a heavyweight bout, on paper at least. It was against a G5 opponent who was their rival. Now, it turned out to be a great game, but it wasn't like Colorado was just like must-see TV before Deion Sanders got there. They are now. National relevance, that means something when it comes to recruiting. I think it's taken a while for them to get that juice that they really want on the recruiting trail in terms of quantity. They signed Jordan Seaton, 5-star plus kind of offensive tackle, so that's some juice for them on that level, but also the transfer portal. We'll see how they do this cycle around. I just want to make sure we're on the same page here. Deion Sanders and what he did, there's no way to say it wasn't a success. Now, is it the success that they want long-term? No, but year one, I think you got to check that box for phase 1 in terms of becoming relevant and putting the world on notice of who Colorado is and being competitive when it comes to the conversation around if you can snag recruits or if you can snag guys via the portal. Now, the proof of that, I think, is going to take a second to get there, but you laid some lumber. You laid some building blocks. Deion Sanders and what he does, the impact of it, good or bad, is 10x. Like, if he loses a ball game, you have everybody in their mama running to a microphone saying, Deion Sanders, he's not who we thought he was. Deion Sanders, he's not this, he's not that. But then if he wins a football game, just like we talked about a second ago, he goes 3-0. You got people from the back row shouting, hey, Deion Sanders, man, Colorado, they're winning the national title. We understand now the right answer, as it always is somewhere in the middle, but I'm just saying the narrative around Deion is so sporadic and so emphatic. We just got to kind of treat this with the right kind of glasses, the Deion glasses. And I think there's some Deion shades that are out there as well, which, to be honest, kind of fresh. So when Deion Sanders was asked about Florida State and their, being left out of the college football playoff, I have a little bit of an issue with how he answered that. He said, there's no way in the world that you would leave us out if I'm the head coach, speaking about him at Colorado and essentially the impact he has on the college football playoff and the committee and stuff like that. I understand that. But he took it a step further and said, there's no way you leave me out of the playoff. It's a business thing. We're box office. People want to see us in the playoff. So what he's implying here is it's about TV ratings. What he's implying here is that it's not just about the games. It's not just about the most deserving or not most deserving, the best teams in the country. He's saying there's other things baked into that. Now, my issue with that is there is proof here in front of us that that's not the case. Because if that was the case, if it was about TV ratings, you know who would have been left out of the college football playoff? It wouldn't have been Florida State. It would have been Washington. Say, JD, that's crazy. Is it? Florida State, bigger brand, bigger demand for a TV audience over a school like Washington. You say, well, what about what Florida State did on the field versus Washington? Washington was more dominant. Were they? Florida State, they had a better margin of victory than Washington. 19 points versus 14 points was the average margin of victory for Florida State and Washington, respectively. Well, you're not factoring the Jordan Travis effect there. Last 3 games, same thing is true. Florida State, 8.7 was the margin of victory for them. Washington, it was 2.7. If there was a team that was going to be left out based on business decision, it would have been Washington, not Florida State. So that, again, is further proof that Florida State and the TV ratings thing, that's all malarkey. There's no conspiracy theory here to be had. I understand that whenever something that we can't necessarily agree on wholeheartedly across the board, there becomes this conspiracy urge for us to say there's other things at play. That's not the case here. The 4 best teams is what this was about. And if you put Colorado in the exact same spot as Florida State, I understand Deion Sanders demands a ton of national attention, and it probably juices TV ratings, not probably, does juice TV ratings a fair amount. The same thing would have happened to Colorado. And I can say this too, given the same circumstances of not having your starting quarterback for Colorado, the impact on Colorado versus Florida State would have been much, much greater. The backup quarterback for Colorado who would have played in their title game, let's say it was the 3rd string guy, because that was what Florida State played with. Florida State played with a 3-star quarterback out of high school in Brock Glenn, okay? Colorado, if you put them on their 3rd string quarterback, it would have been someone who was unranked by any recruiting service. I'm not throwing shade, we're just spitting facts here. Other part of this, the impact Shedeur Sanders had on a team like Colorado, if you took him out of the lineup, say you go to the backup quarterback, Shedeur Sanders and his impact on Colorado was far greater than what Jordan Travis had at Florida State. Shedeur Sanders accounted for 72% of Colorado's yards on the season. 72%. Colorado offensively scored 41 touchdowns. Shedeur Sanders accounted for 31 of those. They're a drastically different team without Shedeur Sanders in the lineup. And this is not me dunking on Colorado. This is not me dunking on Florida State. This is me trying to further drive home the point here that it was never about TV ratings. It was never about anything with a conspiracy theory. It was always about 4 best teams. And just like Jordan Travis not being a part of Florida State drastically impacts what kind of team they are, Shedeur Sanders not being a part of Colorado's lineup would have impacted their chances of making the college football playoff, I have to believe, even more. Especially if you have that same showing you would have in a conference title game where it's not necessarily a blowout of sorts to give the committee good faith that your team can keep it going in the college football playoff. So all that's to say, Deion Sanders, what he's done for college football, what he's doing at Colorado, again, year 1, I wholeheartedly believe, a smashing success. But to say that given the same circumstances as Florida State, Colorado would have gotten into the playoff because of the national attention they draw, I don't think that's true. I think it really is about the best 4 teams. I think the committee put who they believe the best 4 teams are. I disagree with some of the way that it all went down still. I mean, I think that the committee did what they thought was right. And we'll see what happens in this college football playoff. But regardless, Deion Sanders is cooking Colorado. And whatever he does going forward will be magnified 10x than any other coach. So we'll keep an eye on this. Again, make sure you subscribe. We appreciate y'all tuning in. We're going to keep this party rolling now. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.